Hi, I'm Alex, this is Pucks and Paperbacks, and in this reading vlog, Instagram's picking my TBR. I've done these videos before. I usually stick to the traditional concept where my followers choose what I do and what I read. I'll still be implementing that into this vlog, but I'm changing things up. I'm gonna be using the Explore and In Feed feature to see if I can get some good book recommendations. This is gonna be a weekend vlog, so I'm aiming to read 2 books. So my criteria is to read a book on my TBR and a book that I own. And I want to do something in one of the books that I read. In my previous Instagram Controls My Life videos, I have done something from one of the books that I've read. I've tried jalapeno chips, which are my favorite chip now. Okay, so I'm going to check the Explore page first. I'll give myself at least 3 tries to figure out what I'm going to read. So we have I Read It Because It's Queer. I love that. Trans and non-binary books to read in 2025. That appeals to me. And a post that I'm not going to look at because I am sensitive at the moment because of hockey. Let's see if there's anything here that I own. Okay, well, I've read most of these. A lot of these are just 2025 releases, so I'm not going to do that in this vlog. But let's see. I Read It Because It's Queer. Okay. These are some good contenders. A Song for the Wild Belt We Love. Oh, The Mimicking of Known Successes I wanted to read this month, but wasn't sure if I would have time for it. Oh, I loved the Z Word. All That's Left in the World, that's a good one I could do. Hell Followed With Us I have, but I don't really know if I feel like doing that. Hijab, Butch Blues I also own, so I could do that. Okay, this is actually pretty promising. I'm going to choose Hijab, Butch Blues. I own it, so now I can check off that. Wow, that was the first post that it recommended me. It was at the very top, and I was a winner. So that makes me really excited for this video. Now let's go over to my feed. I feel like that's gonna be the hardest because Instagram's feed, it sucks now. So I have a post from Sarah_the Bookish Nerd, and they are recommending Devon and Chris Plan a Wedding, and I do have that on my Kindle, and it's kind of calling to me. So that's also a book on my TBR. Now I understand why people were saying that, like, Instagram doesn't really show them books. Or, like, show them most of their followers and things, because since that Sarah post, I haven't really gotten much since then. Okay, so I just saw this post recommended to me by Chevrolet Books, and it says book recs based on your favorite album since the Grammys just happened. I swiped to Chaperone because that was one of the most popular albums that I listened to if you saw my Spotify Picks My TBR vlog, and I really am drawn to Housemates. I've been wanting to read it so badly, so if I'm able to get the audiobook or something, I'm gonna pick that. Okay, so this is a pretty good list so far. I know I'm going to read Hijab, Butch Blues. I just have to pick what my second book is going to be. So my options are Devon and Chris Plan a Wedding and Housemates. These books are all on my TBR. Housemates is about a road trip, and I wanted to read it last year, but I didn't get a chance, and I own Devon and Chris. So I'm going to see what I can obtain, and I will be back once we start reading. Hello, happy Saturday, and welcome to the official start of my Instagram vlog. I put out some polls a couple days ago to help get the video going. I have 3 polls to have my followers control what I do, and I'll be telling you the books I've actually chose because I think when I last saw you, I was undecided. But I'm drinking hot coffee because on Instagram, they chose for me to drink hot, which I thought was interesting. I wonder if just because of the weather and things like that, everybody chose hot. I would rather have ice because I've been really liking Sabrina Carpenter's Dunkin' drink at the moment. It's a brown sugar shaken espresso, but hot coffee will do, especially because it's supposed to snow today into tomorrow, I believe. It's gonna be a mess, but perfect time to read because I'll be stuck inside. Next, onto the books. I will be reading Hijab, Butch Blues, which I'll start today, and I thought I would let you pick my bookmark. So I have Queerthology, this cool octopus one. I really wanted the octopus to win, but everyone chose Queerthology, which is so exciting. I'll link Queerthology down below if you're interested in a book club about queer anthologies. Chris is awesome, the host of this, and I got a chance last May to write a review for Out of Our League, which was one of my most anticipated releases, so I'll link all that down below if you're interested. Definitely go and support Chris if you like queer anthologies. She does a phenomenal job with this, and it's so fun. The next book is Housemates, and honestly, I think that might be where I stop with this video because I am just really behind with vlogs. I am still currently filming my Second Chance Romances vlog that I really need to finish today to hopefully get out tomorrow, Monday. I feel so behind, but what am I gonna do about it? It was a busy week with the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, and you'll learn more in that vlog. But I wasn't sure how I was gonna read Housemates because I didn't know if I should read it ebook or audio, and y'all really came through and 75% voted for audio. I was curious about this because I haven't read the book, obviously, but I've been wanting to. I believe it's literary fiction about two women who go on a road trip, and that's very exciting because there are some prompts for my yearly reading challenges this year to complete a book about travel, so that will help me there, and I've been dying to read this. So I figured I would share the poll results with you. To kick off the vlog, I am going to now finish up some things for my Second Chance Romances vlog, but when you see me next, I will be reading Hijab Butch Blues. Good morning. It's Thursday. I'm still reading Hijab Butch Blues. I read more of it last night. I'm 23 pages in. Yeah, I haven't been reading that much this week. That's why I'm just updating you now. But I'm sitting here because my plan is to read it this morning and hopefully finish it up because I was so hooked last night. My eyes were glued to the page and I had to physically put the book down so I could get some sleep. This is a memoir about Lamia as she navigates religion. It talks about how she's seeing herself in the passages of the Quran. And it's so fascinating to me. As somebody who loves to read books about religious trauma and also grew up Catholic, I went to Catholic school from 1st to 9th grade. I am relating to this. And I'm excited to read the rest of it. I totally understand the hype, and I love when I open a book and I am just flying through it. So I will update you probably at the 50-page mark, if not when I'm finished. I just finished Hijab Butch Blues. It was fantastic, and I just want to read you this quote from the author's note. I hope that on these pages you will see and come to love how messy faith can be, and how that messiness makes space for us to grapple with the contradictions that make us human. Messiness is, at its best, generative. It allows us to ask ourselves the truest, most important question about what it means to be alive. As you can see, I tabbed so much of this book. I highlighted a bunch. I just thought this was fantastic. I don't really have too much more to say that would be important, so I am going to leave a review down below from a queer Muslim. I just thought this was so good. I just love the way that Lamia is able to connect stories from the Quran to queerness and things happening in her life. At first, I didn't know if I was going to like the non-chronological order of the book. I was having a little trouble with that, just connecting everything and knowing where we are, because she doesn't talk about time or dates, and a lot of things are vague. So I was having a little trouble, but as I read more, I understood why that format was needed for this book. It's published by the Dial Press, which is one of my favorite publications, and Lamia also has a new book coming out about parenting as a non-binary person. They talk about how Allah is gender non-conforming in their eyes. It talks about homophobia, Islamophobia, as well as internalized homophobia and racism. I'm pretty speechless when it comes to this. I am just so in awe of the writing, the storytelling, this whole book, and I totally understand why it has been hyped. I want to get on the hype train because Yes, you need to read this book. This was just so amazing. I also enjoyed We Have Always Been Here by Summer Habib. That was one of my favorite books of the year in 2024. And this is a great comp to that. So if you like that book, I recommend this. Samara is an immigrant from Pakistan to Canada, and in this, Lamia has immigrated to New York from somewhere in the Middle East. It's not named. She was born in South Asia, and then her family moved to somewhere in the Middle East, and then in her 20s she immigrates to New York. I'm gonna keep saying it, but this was just so good. I also appreciated that she talks about, one, how dating as a queer person is very hard, but also the things that she experienced on dating apps and dates, just coming into her queerness, and why she has not come out to her family. And I love that her partner respected that. There's a line. It says, "These rules are an act of love. This gesture of care and tenderness from Liv on this journey to introduce her as a friend to a family who loves me is all beautiful and tender and unfair that I feel as if my heart will break." Her partner, Liv, says, "It's just how life is. These are the things you do for the people you love." I'm surprised that I didn't sob at this because there were so many lines that just punch you. But the last line, I was in tears. Just talking about your childhood self and building a life for them is so powerful. And the book literally opens up about Lamia being 14 and reading the Quran for the first time and seeing queerness and realizing that Mariam likes women. That's why she is rejecting men at every corner. And that is just how the whole book pretty much is. Oh my god, I love this so much. I'm so glad I finally got around to it. And also, I'm glad that I have a physical copy because I don't do that very often. And this is the type of book that if I were reading it from the library, I would immediately need to have a copy. So now I have to buy new page flags because I've used pretty much all of mine for this book. But those are my thoughts on Hijab Butch Blues. I know it really wasn't much, but this was just so good and I'm speechless. And now on to Housemates. Hello, I hope you can hear me and the audio's not too bad because it's a little noisy in the kitchen, but I just made a frozen pizza for dinner. That is the level of spoons that I have at the moment. I am 35% into Housemates, and the road trip is about to commence. Pretty much this is a book about queer people, community, and it's set in Philadelphia, which I didn't know. I think the author's doing a great job of talking about issues in Philly, especially that the characters live in West Philly, which is a very gentrified area. I appreciate that the author is talking about those issues and talking about how the characters are being anti-racist and how they're helping the community. There's a lot of talk about mutual aid, but the purpose of the book is our main character, Bernie, was a assistant in college for a photographer named Daniel Dunn. I think that's what his name is. And he recently passes away. And Bernie is realizing that Daniel was not a great person. And there was just a great quote where she says she got to see a good version of him and was sad that other people didn't get that. She's learning that he sexually assaulted multiple women. So she is learning that Daniel was not who she knew him as, and it's really talking about kind of learning that your idols are not who you think they are. So Bernie decides she's going to go on a road trip throughout Pennsylvania, but she needs help. So she enlists the help of Leah, a housemate, and Leah is a photographer, and so Bernie is like, I really need somebody that's good at photography to help me with this project. Now, this is the book I'm going to use for doing something in, so I'm really not sure what I'm going to do, because I, for one, do not want to, nor have the means to road trip across Pennsylvania, but I'm hoping that they at least talk about Pennsylvania things, so maybe I can do something. I'm kinda hoping that they talk about Wawa so I can go to Wawa. But honestly, we'll see what happens. But I'm really enjoying this so far. I love artsy queers, so it's really fun to have some photographer and journalist queers in this book. There's some non-binary rap, so I figured I would update you. Honestly, I've just been playing The Sims while I read this, and it's been so fun. So that's all for now, and I will see you later. Hi, I finished Housemates and I did something in the book, so let's chat. They go to a diner frequently throughout the book since they're on a road trip. They also go to Waffle House, which I didn't even know there was one in PA. The thing about PA is it's very wide. Like, Pittsburgh is a whole different place. From Philadelphia to get to Pittsburgh, it's at least a 5-hour drive or train, etc. The state is very wide, so there are still so many places in PA that I've never been to. Specifically in this book, they go to the countryside. So throughout the book, they are exploring the countryside of Lancaster and Puxatawney and so many other places in rural PA. I was really glad that they touched on the indigenous history of the Lenape people, as well as the Amish who live there. There's a scene where they pick up an Amish boy and interview him a little bit. There's so much of PA that you don't know about, and so I was glad to see the parts that other people might not know about and some things that I don't know. There's a lot of history that we don't even know, especially if you grew up in Philadelphia like I did. Also, I feel like we're not really taught PA history as much. The only thing is like Paul Bunyan. I feel like that's the only thing I really know, and then like Benjamin Franklin and things like that. But I do wish that the education system talked more about the indigenous history of PA and our roots, because it's very important. As they road trip through PA, they stop at multiple diners. So I figured, since I hadn't completed my task to do something in a book, I would go to a diner. I went to my local diner around 11 a.m. and it was packed. I was so shocked, especially on a Monday. But I was really glad to be back there again. It's one of my favorite diners. And diner food just hits different. As I was reading, I was craving home fries because Leah orders them all the time. So I ended up getting their order. It says they did go to that diner, a busy one, with a menu as big as a book. Leah was decisive this time, ordering exactly what she felt. Pancakes and potatoes and coffee and chocolate milk. So they ordered pancakes, potatoes, coffee, and chocolate milk. And I did as well. And it was really good. Diner food is one of the best foods in my opinion. I feel like it always hits different. And the coffee there is top tier. So I'm really glad I was able to go back to the diner and have some diner food. It was so good. And now let's talk about the book. I really enjoyed this. I don't think it was my favorite, but I enjoyed what it did. And honestly, I read a lot of romance this month, and I was glad to just have some literary fiction. It has been a while. If you like literary fiction, I highly recommend this, but I am going to read the trigger warnings in a bit because it is a heavy book. We're following Bernie and Leah, who are housemates living in West Philly. Bernie is a photographer, and she was the assistant to Daniel Dunn, a famous photographer. She ends up learning a lot of bad things about him, especially that he sexually assaulted multiple women. But she knew a good version of him, so she's really trying to wrap her head around the fact that Daniel is not who she knew him as. So as she's grieving the Daniel she once knew, she learns that he passed away. So that just adds another layer. Later she gets a phone call and is told that Daniel is leaving his cameras to her. She doesn't want that because she just wants to be rid of this horrible guy. All the housemates are artists in some sort, either a journalist, a writer, photographer, etc. So Bernie is the photographer and Leah is the writer. So they both decide to go on this road trip together. Leah proposes it because they want to create a project, but they're not sure what it's going to be called, but they want to explore Pennsylvania and write something about it. But they need somebody to take photos. So Bernie does that because she ends up getting the call and it just makes sense. So they embark on this road trip. Leah doesn't drive. I think this was a great setup of some forced proximity, but they start the road trip and learn a little bit more about each other. Leah is fat, Jewish, and non-binary. I really enjoyed Leah's character, especially because it's different representation that I've never seen before in a book. I mean, maybe I have read this sort of character before, but I think it's so important to be writing non-binary characters outside of the stereotypical androgynous way. I have read many non-binary characters, but Leah was so different to me, and I loved this representation. Leah talks about why they don't want to get top surgery, just why it's not a priority for them, and they're fat, so they talk a lot about body image and things about their bodies, so trigger warning for that if it's sensitive to you. There is some fat phobia just internalized, and there is a lot of description about the body, so trigger warning if that is triggering to you. But it was so nice to see a non-binary character who is very free and also is on testosterone, and then them talking about not wanting to get top surgery. And I just thought that was really interesting because I just feel like most of the time you don't really get a non-binary character who is on hormones or talks openly about their transness. So I just thought this was really great to see. At the beginning of the book, Leah primarily goes by she, her pronouns. I'm pretty sure they are referred to as she multiple times in the book, but then throughout they switch to they, them pronouns. I just really liked Leah as a character so much. Bernie as well, she was very fun. I just thought this was so interesting, and the whole book is narrated by somebody else. And the whole time you're like, who is this? You do obviously learn who it is, and that's where it talks about 2 generations of queer artists. I feel like I'm not explaining this well. Since it's literary fiction, sometimes I have a hard time describing those type of books because I feel like you just have to read it to experience it. But I would recommend this. I'm so glad that I finally got to read it. I also really liked the art aspect. I love to read about artsy queers. Specifically, the project is called Changing Pennsylvania, and they go throughout Pennsylvania and take pictures, and Leah writes the captions, and they do this whole presentation, and it ends up going viral. And it was so fun. As somebody who grew up in Northeast Philly, I really appreciated this book because it is like a love letter to PA, especially to the queer community. I really enjoyed this for the story and the character work. They are complex and messy. Leah is trying to figure out what they're doing with Alex, the girl they're seeing, and it's complicated. I will say there is some cheating, which I just fucking hate that in queer books. Like, can we stop with that? Especially when you're grown adults. It's so annoying. So there is some sexual scenes. The trigger warnings I wrote down are there's mention of abortion and some detail of that, fat phobia, internalized fat phobia, talk about dieting, sexual assault is mentioned on page. I don't believe it goes into specific detail, but it is mentioned. And yeah, I enjoyed this. I'm so glad I got to read it. I feel like this was just a type of book that was a good palate cleanser for the month because, like I said, I've been reading a lot of romance, and I enjoyed this. That is the book portion of this vlog. And last, I want to recommend some people that I love on Instagram that if you're over there, who you can support. If you like my content and trans books, I highly recommend my friend Reese over at Read with Reese. I mentioned him back in my reading challenges video in January. His account is specifically dedicated to recommending and uplifting trans books. He has a book club, he has these challenges, a book bingo, and a trans reading challenge, which I will be participating in a little bit more in March. And I really enjoy the work that he's doing over on Instagram, so I highly recommend him. Somebody I've also been recommending a lot lately is Naomi at From the Mixed Up Desk. I love her. She uplifts Indigenous books. She has a book club and a bindery. I highly recommend to support her on Bindery. Bindery is a publishing company where influencers have their own press, and she was selected to be able to publish an Indigenous book. So if you want to support her and love Indigenous books, highly recommend her. I think she's great. I'll also shout out my friend Andrea. I get so many good recommendations from her. You may recognize her as the author of Evilise Explains It All. My friend Megan at Books and Blazers, she also uplifts queer and trans books. Steph at Starry Steph, she's one of my favorites. As well as Carmen at Tomes and Textiles. She is dedicated to uplifting and sharing Latinx books. I just love these people so much. Honestly, I could probably make a whole video recommending people who I love on Instagram. I'll link everybody down below. Definitely go and give them a follow. I'm at Pugs and Paperbacks on Instagram. I'm always using my stories to uplift other creators, so definitely go and shoot me a follow as well so that you'll be updated with my content. I share a lot of content on there, and I use my stories very regularly to uplift other voices. But I don't think I've mentioned why I'm personally staying on Instagram. I mentioned it in a previous video, but my community is over on Instagram. Instagram is one of my favorite apps, or was, because I am a photographer first. I love photography, and I just love connecting with other people. I feel like I've met so many people just on Bookstagram. I'm friends with so many authors now. I am able to connect with other booktubers through Bookstagram, and I am able to get book recommendations like I did for this video. So I'm not going anywhere, but I totally respect the people that do not feel safe on Instagram. I'm pissed off that this is happening, but honestly, I'm not surprised, and I hope that everybody is just taking care of themselves. And I think if we continue to support queer and trans folks, this is really going to help combat the negative. I recently made a video where I shared how I create a safe space for myself on BookTube, so I will link that up above for you, because I want to create a safe space for myself on Instagram, on BookTube, and I think we can do that. There are so many ways you can. I know Instagram you can as well. Last year I made a couple Instagram reels about how I moderate my content on Instagram. So when this video goes up, I'll share it to my stories, but maybe I'll share them in the description as well. I love Instagram, but I totally understand why people wouldn't feel safe there. Fuck you, Mark Zuckerberg. I'm not going anywhere. And that is it for this vlog. Thanks so much for clicking on this video and spending some time with me. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and leave a comment. It really helps me out when you do so. If you don't feel like leaving a lengthy comment, you can just leave a book emoji down below so I know you stayed. If you would like to support me further, I have a Patreon. Thank you to my top patrons for their support. During this video, I have actually been making a video for my patrons, sharing the behind the scenes of how I filmed this. So if you're interested in that, I will have it listed on Patreon for $10, or you can subscribe to my highest tier, the Bookish bundle, for $10 and get a lot of perks. I also have a lower tier at $5, and I'll be doing a short video for them next month. There's also a ton of exclusive content on there, so if you would like to support me further and you have the means, definitely go check out my Patreon. I also have free options if you're interested in that. If you want to watch more, I'll leave my last reading vlog here, and you can subscribe there. I hope you're all taking care of yourself, and I hope to see you in my next video very soon.